Hello, Nikki Fletcher here, and as part of National Infertility Awareness Week, today I want to talk to you about some of the things that you should never say to a person who's dealing with infertility. Sorry, the cat is just distracting me, I need to deal with that. I'll be back in a moment. Sorry about that. If I didn't deal with that, I'd end up with Moet video bombing me. Anyway, where was I? So I want to talk to you about some of the things that you should never say to a person who is dealing with infertility. Now, some of these comments I know are well meant. They are attempting to be supportive. However, they can be really insensitive. They can hurt people who are dealing with infertility. And then at the other extreme, you do have comments sometimes which are really vindictive, really nasty, really spiteful, and incredibly hurtful. And I've experienced both extremes. I'll deal with the really nasty ones first. I had somebody who knew me incredibly well. They had known me for many years. They knew that I had had a couple of fairly major surgeries to remove endoadhesions to improve my fertility. They also knew that I had had a sorry, I've got a really bad cough now. I want to cough. Hang on a second. Hi, Nikki Fletcher here, and as part of National Infertility Awareness Week over in the US, I just wanted to record another video about raising awareness. And this video is really about why it's so important that we do raise awareness, and the fact that I think it is the role of the people who are going through infertility to raise that awareness. Now, I know that some people struggle with that idea because their attitude is, I'm almost the victim here. I'm the one who has to deal with, to cope with the insensitive comments, the fact that we are almost considered to be second-class citizens, that we don't have a vested interest in the future of the world, that we are less important than other people because we haven't had children, that our roles in life are not as important because we haven't been nurturing the next generation. And that is how we are often made to feel by the rest of the world. We live in a very child-centric world, and it can seem like a very hostile place to live in. We can feel very isolated about it. And I know a lot of people think, we haven't done anything wrong here, so why should we be the ones who have to speak out? Why should we be the ones who have to change the attitudes of the rest of the world? And I totally understand that, and I do agree with it, except I would say that if we do want attitudes to change, then we have to be the people who change those attitudes. Because the people who make the insensitive comments don't know that they are insensitive or cruel unless we tell them it is. So we need to express ourselves, we need to share our stories, we need to teach the world, educate the rest of the world that infertility is a real struggle, and that our needs should be considered, and not swept under the carpet, etc., not ignored, because it's not going to happen by a process of osmosis. The rest of the world isn't going to suddenly wake up one day and go, oh, do you know what? Perhaps we should be a bit more inclusive to the people who haven't been able to have children. That the whole world isn't going to suddenly realise that some of the comments which have been said are insensitive unless we do something to change people's attitudes. And for me, I think there are a lot of similarities between the silence, the stigma associated with infertility that used to surround mental health issues. Now, thankfully, things have started to change for the better in the world of mental health. However, it's been a long and uphill struggle for the people who have been attempting to change attitudes. It's taken 20, 30, 40 years of gently pushing and pushing to try and make people talk about mental health issues so it removes the stigma associated with them, or with it rather. So people start to understand a little bit more of it, or a bit more about it, if they haven't experienced it firsthand themselves. In the last week or so, we've had Prince Harry sharing with the world that he really struggled for a long time following the death of his mother, and that a few years ago it got to the stage where he had to do something about it and he had to seek professional help. Now, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you would not have had such a prominent member of the royal family speaking out in such a way. It just wouldn't have happened because the stigma associated with mental health issues was so great. I mean, I can remember a time 20 years ago when you would seriously consider whether or not you should talk to your doctor if you were suffering from depression, because that would go down onto your medical notes, and if you went and had some kind of medical for your job, perhaps you just applied for a new job and you were shortlisted and they were going to have some kind of medical assessment before they offered you the job, having reference to the fact that you were depressed on your medical records was a big no-no. So you would think very seriously before you would talk to your doctor about that. Now, fortunately, attitudes have changed an awful lot regarding mental health issues. We've got a long way to go about infertility. Now, fortunately, if you are infertile and you do want to conceive, you do have to talk to your GPs, your doctors. So we don't have that sort of issue. However, it still really isn't talked about that much. There is a stigma associated with it. People who are going through infertility don't want to share things about what they're experiencing because of that stigma. We feel guilty, we feel shame, and that's got to change. However, if we want it to change, we've got to be the people who make that change. So whether you can do something quite big and brave like me and talk in front of a camera, or whether it's just a little bit, so the next time somebody says something quite insensitive, just say, excuse me, but please don't say that, because it's wrong. We've got to do things to help people to realise that their attitudes towards infertility is wrong, that they need to be more inclusive, that they need to be more sensitive, etc. Now, what I would say is, whenever you're doing this, your mantra should be educate, not retaliate. Now, I still struggle with this sometimes. If tomorrow I walked into a place, mentioned that I'd not been able to have children, and somebody said, oh, God, I don't know how you lot can cope without having children. You must feel absolutely useless or worthless. What's the purpose of your life? My initial reaction would probably be to thump them. However, I am learning to take a deep breath, smile, and then say, excuse me, but that really isn't helpful. What's the purpose of saying that? What do you mean by it? Don't you realise that some people, like me, can't have children because they haven't been able to, and it's not something that they have control over? So as I say, the focus, the aim here should be to educate, not retaliate. And it may take 20 or 30 years until the silence is properly broken and the stigma has vanished. However, if we don't start today, that 20 years isn't going to be in 20 years from now, it's going to be in 20 years from 10 years down the line. So it's going to be in 30 years. And there are an awful lot of people who will have to deal with the pressures of living in an unsympathetic, child-centric world until that change happens. So please, if you can, help raise awareness. Because as you can see, infertility really does suck. That's all from me. Till next time, bye.